are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Welcome to my very most favorite night of the week. It's Soul Wanderings night, and Soul Wanderings is a show about journey stories, and we are hanging out here on the best in alternative talk, KGRAradio.com. It's heard throughout our universe every Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, and each week we get to wander with a new guest about their authentic journey through this human experience. And it's so lovely to have you here with us for another live show tonight. I missed you guys last week. It's not my norm to miss a show, but I went and had a great time with some friends and took a little me break, which was much needed. I am so happy to report that you all were missed, because my week is just not the same if I do not have a wandering. So thank you for being here with me. Hello, my friends. I am AJ Rasmussen, and I am an owner and the manager of a very special heart-centered healing space. And it's there where I get to assist others every single day in their healing journeys. And I also have this fantastical opportunity to be your host of Soul Wanderings. And for those of you who are new, and a reminder to those who wander with us often, I hang out in the chat room during the show, and it's the place to be, especially if you find yourself with a question for our guest. And I try to grab as many as I can, so make sure you guys head on over to kgraradio.com/chat, and I hope to find you there with myself and the other wanderers. As always, I don't like to miss any moment, so we're going to get right into this wandering. I've really been looking forward to tonight because our guest has written a book. It is called Walking Between Worlds, A Spiritual Odyssey, and I took the opportunity to partake in these writings, and there are a lot of parallels that I have with our guest. So it hit home. It felt really wonderful to know that people can overcome challenges in their lives and be better than ever. And that is exactly what our guest has done. She's obviously an author. She's a channel and a medium. And she went through a series of events throughout her life, which led her down a spiritual journey and to write this book, a book about her life and her life experiences. This evening, as we wander, we will get to hear about this personal journey as well as the happenings thereof, which she shares in her book, like I said. So hello and welcome to Soul Wanderings, Athena.
Thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with your audience, and hopefully if they have questions, being able to address those and answer those for them. And I'm very grateful for this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for spending time with us. Wandering is always a joy in my life, and to hear and be able to spend time with you one-on-one, with our listeners, of course, but you and I are here one-on-one together. It really is a blessing, especially knowing of your story beforehand and what we get to hear tonight. So we'd love to hear you share some things about yourself first, personally, on a personal level, like who is Athena Demitrios?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been figuring that out all my life. I would say first and foremost, a soul searcher. And I always say I was born that way. I can't remember ever feeling another way. I always wanted to know why was I born? Who am I and who is God? And I remember having a very clear memory as a child where I looked up at the stars at night. I was about 2 years old and wanting to go home. And I felt so homesick and I didn't know how to get back. And that feeling, that longing that I belonged to a greater all, that I was connected to something much greater. However, I didn't know what it was, didn't even really have a word for it. I was not raised in a family of any kind of religious doctrine, we'll put it that way. And so throughout my life, especially through the first part of my life, very bitter, very detached, wouldn't let people close. And I can go back here in a few minutes and go into some of those reasons why. And certainly it was the trauma and the loss of tremendous wealth from my family. And so that spiraled us into the depths of poverty that I always say was so hard to ever feel that I was ever going to be able to even climb out of, because it just seemed to soak into my psyche and just feeling very separated from life. And I always, however, questioned. Part of me always questioned, and that didn't really begin to take shape and form into what I would call anything but a spiritual awakening, which happened in 1979. Prior to that, to tell you the truth, I don't even feel like the same person. I can't even think back now I can think back to that time, certainly, but to relate to who I was, I'm feeling a sense of compassion for that aspect of myself now. And I am grateful for that. I always had a desire and a passion to explore, let's say, makeup and to create some form of beauty. So as I moved into my adult years, that became my world, cosmetics. And then I went to work for Revlon, and from there I went to work in the film industry, all of the while having this parallel world that began to unfold. It was almost like going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole and still maintaining a career, and a career with some success with that. And so there was always a driving force, I would say, that continued to propel me forward. Equally, while I was working in the film industry as a makeup artist, then I was exploring all these different levels of healing. So with that said, and also with channeling, everything started to happen, AJ, in its own time and place and space. Mm-hmm. And then equally, with that, as in my personal life, I love to cook. I love creating magical dinners with friends. I love having 6-8 people come over in comfortable clothes where we can put our feet up and have a magical dinner. I enjoy that very much. And, meditation, that's part of that. And then also hanging out with family. So now at this stage in my life, it feels as if all of these experiences, which I will get into, the good, bad, the ugly, have all really shaped me in a way I feel like I can give back to the world now. And that was really part and parcel of writing the book. I just knew I needed to get the story written.
What was the driving force behind you knowing that you needed to write your story?
Well, I started to write as a troubled teenager. I would go sit at this creek and just write my feelings out. So I always think there's a lot of good worth in journaling for anybody that's seeking. In other words, but when I was, this was around 1982. I crossed paths with one that I now channel. His name is Dr. Peebles, and I call him my mystical muse. And my first question to him was that I had been feeling this desire to write. Now, this was when I visited him through his other medium. I had heard him on the radio probably a week prior. I fell in love with him, just fell in love with him. I was electrified when I heard his voice. And so I asked him, I said, I have been feeling this desire to write. And he confirmed that it was a channeling state, but he said, you need to write your life story. And that was a challenge, because to be able to strip myself, to be really vulnerable with people, to let people see all of the flaws and the things that I had always tried so hard to hide, but to be so authentic and raw in my writing, where I don't color anything, I don't make it more than it is exactly as it happened and transpired. And so that was the biggest challenge. That somewhat became a writer's block for me. And then, AJ, it was something I knew on a level, even though I was exhausted at the thought of it to my very toes, to write it, because there's been such a huge diversity of my experiences, and really having one foot in the other realm. But it was also, what would people think? That was a big thing. Mm-hmm. And then I remember being in a mall in Westwood, California, and a complete stranger, very well dressed, she was in her 60s, I'll never forget this, came up to me and she shook her finger in my face, and she's probably 8 inches from my face. And she said, your life may very well become a film and a TV movie of the week, and you need to be writing. You could be helping millions of women. And unbeknownst to me, she was a very well-known clairvoyant, a very successful psychic. Wow. And so it wasn't the fame or the TV movie of the week, and I didn't put that in the forward of my book because it sounded self-serving, but that's what she had actually said. And then when I thought, okay, so let's say you die tomorrow. How would you feel about your life? How would you feel about your growth and what you've been able to resolve? And I thought, I feel really good about that. But what I would feel like I backed out of fear was writing the book. And then I just said, out of hell with it. And I just let the cork pop. And that was it. So it was almost 25 years in writing. Yeah.
Oh, it took that long.
Yes, it did.
When you said let the cork pop, you absolutely did. Your book is raw, and it's one of the things that I enjoyed about it, because you didn't hold back. There were moments in there that were very challenging to read, especially if someone had gone through something similar. Yeah. But I feel like that's necessary in anyone's journey, for you, for the healing, and for other people to know that they could also be brave enough to share their story and heal their experiences as well.
Well, so well said. And I do believe that. And something told me when I began to explore the healing of the repressed sexual abuse. And it was a series of rapes that took place between the age of 6 and 7 when I was a very young child. My father wasn't around. This was my mother's boyfriend, who I always say he lived in our root cellar like a troll. Now, years later, because I do believe, for any listener that's listening, that things happen in their own time and place and space. And so it's important to honor that. So when that period started to unfold for me, and I knew I really wanted to go back and wrestle that demon to the ground, because I figured I've survived it. I'm here. So why not go back and really become empowered and get my power back? Because I always felt like they had, or he had the power that I didn't. And so that was important. That was a real driving thrust for me in my healing process. And when I found the right therapist, and I always say it's so important to trust yourself, and finding the right therapist, a very qualified therapist, to help you navigate any kind of storm in healing, because it doesn't come as a technological download of info. Mm-hmm. As we know in life, things come through experience, right?
Absolutely.
That's our teacher. And so something told me to record those sessions. So what you are reading are from the sessions that I recorded. Mm-hmm. And I could pull those tapes out for you now, and you could follow the bouncing ball. That's how right on they all are. And so that was important. Little did I know that truly, it would take shape and form in a book. But I also want to say, AJ, sometimes I feel, and I want, and I hope any of your listeners are really taking this into their hearts. But sometimes some of the most challenging experiences that we may have in life are the ones that shape us and define us, to the point that down the road, you can really step forward and have that gift to share with others. And while I'm flashing on this, because it's just flashed through my mind, what I would like to say to any one of the listeners that are listening, to you beautiful hearts out there and you beautiful sources of light, I want you to fully hear this. If you are going through anything right now that is challenging, doesn't make any difference what it is, and if it feels like you're in the center of the black hole, well, the one that I channel calls the black hole the point of creation, and to know that you're going to come through that other side. But this was told to me, and I want to share this with a reader. This was told to me at one of the most difficult points in my life, and I will never forget this. This was given to me by one of my guides, and so I would like you, the listener, put your name where my name is here, okay? And just know that this message is for you. And I was told, Athena, you put your name there now, you are a light bearer. And as you step forward with your gift of light to the world, first you must know the darkness and the shadows of your own. And in knowing the same, you will find the desire to honor and to kneel before those dark places, but to see them as beautiful and divine because of your willingness to transform through that darkness into the light for the rest of the world to see. Mm-hmm. And it's so beautiful.
So beautiful. And so accurate. I know a lot of people will take those experiences and play the victim role. I know you did that for a while. I think everyone does that through some point when they go through that darkness. But if you could commit to transitioning your thoughts into having that black hole be the center of creation, it's a whole new reality shift.
Completely. And, for me, it was that way. I most of my childhood, I just didn't have memory, not like my siblings. But I also understand, I think that, we do as children whatever we have to do basically to survive or survive an experience. And some can feel more traumatic, but who can say whose pain is more than another person's pain? Pain is pain, right? And I don't know if anyone else is like me. Man, I wanted to cut it out and remove it like a surgeon. But I was also told some very wise info. And again, this is by the one I channeled, Dr. Peebles, that he said, there is a whole other side to pain than that which you are aware of. he said there is the side to pain is having reverence for it as a divine teacher. He said, because your soul calls upon it, because it really spotlights some resistance. And what it's saying is, hey, look here, because there's something underneath here. And when you get in and you do that kind of work or that excavating, and it doesn't all happen at once, but then you become more empowered and you're expanding your light, you know, so, and it's like you get another piece of the puzzle back, get comfortable in your own skin a little bit more. And so I think there's great worth to that. But what I did learn, and I always like to say this because I think it's important, AJ, is that the way that I viewed life, that, okay, I can't let people close to me. I can't, I have to be on guard. And that turned into being very defensive and standoffish in a lot of ways. My relationships with men were very chaotic. If I dated someone for 3 months, that was long enough, no commitment, that kind of thing. But it really is all about being afraid to really give oneself over to having any kind of real intimacy. And I also heard that, honesty and clarity is the foundation of intimacy. And without honesty and clarity, intimacy cannot exist. And when I went back and I started looking at the way I was viewing my life, basically through distorted lenses, like I always say it was like smearing butter on the glasses I wore as a child. That's how I saw life. And I thought, well, as an adult, that doesn't work anymore because I'm still in inner turmoil. And AJ, everything in me, everything knew that life was not meant to be lived like that. Mm-hmm. That inner separation or that turmoil. And I remember I used to drive around way back when they used to have these bumper stickers. I found it, and I thought, what did you find? Or what did you find? I'm looking for it, and the one thing that I remember writing this little poem. I was looking at myself one time in the mirror. I was 23 years old, and I wrote, if I had the power to change the things I'd see, I'd change the girl inside the mirror who's looking back at me. So, yeah, that was way back when.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that in your book as well. I highlighted that line because I feel like we do that just as our human selves want to change so many aspects of ourselves.
Absolutely. I think you're so correct with that. Yes, we do. We do that. And I certainly did because I just didn't know that change was possible for me. And I just didn't. And so it was a journey getting there. But, oh, my God, I just want to say, you sweet souls, don't ever give up. Mm. Don't ever, ever, ever give up because that tenacity, that perseverance within you, that is what is going to continue to pull you forward. And you will find your answers. You truly will. You just need to be relentless and you will. And I always say, I'm out here swinging the light. I'm swinging that lantern for you. I truly am.
I feel that. That really is the ticket too, right? Just not giving up there because we want to when things get hard. We don't see the light and we are so stuck in that moment, not realizing that there's a greater purpose for it or a really valuable lesson from our experience.
Well, that's true. And I had no idea because I was so unconscious. Now I like to say I'm too conscious to be unconscious, too aware to be unaware.
There's no going back.
There's no going back. And yeah, it's normal. It's like another quote here from Dr. Peoples. It's normal to want to create safety and sanctuary. That's very normal. Mm-hmm. And it's normal, sometimes for me, when I was in the throes of going through this exploration, it just sometimes it felt like the only relief was to push people away, or, I was so suicidal when I was young. People didn't know that. I kept that hidden. But I wanted relief, but something in me knew that if I did that, I was going to have to come back, and it was going to be harder next time. I innately knew that, and that is a great truth. Mm. And so I'm so glad, that I didn't. But eventually it began to progress into healing, and I do believe that whatever experiences, again, that have shaped each listener, and I feel like now I'm talking to people individually here. I hope so. I hope you receive me in your heart that way, because that's where I want to touch you, is that whatever those experiences are in life, it's not about taking a pill and being happy. We all want to do that overnight, but it really is allowing yourself to explore. And it's usually what's bubbling up to the surface. That's what I found for me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, let's pull on this thread and see where it leads. And I'm always willing to pull on the thread, because I feel like if there's something there that is really uncomfortable, if there's something there that's got a pattern to it, and if I find a knee-jerk reaction the same time, or if I'm confronted with something and I have this knee-jerk reaction over and over again, then that's a clue that there's something there to explore. So, I just feel like things bubble up. And also what comes up to the surface sometimes is what we want to shove down. Let it come up, because that's the part of healing.
Right. That's like the red flashing light, or the green flashing light, I should say, because it's your signal to let's work on this, because you can be more. We just need to get rid of some of this extra baggage you're carrying around with you.
Yes, and so true. And it's very hard, to feel as if you aren't victimized.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's a part of healing.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I'm quoting the doc here a lot. I call him the doc. Mm-hmm. I have no idea in many, many ways where I'd be had I not crossed paths with him. He's been such a wonderful guide and influence in my life. But I remember the doc saying, if you're going to feel like a victim, do a good job at it so that you own it and it doesn't own you. And that's what feels so awful, is when it's owning you completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, again, its own time and space. But when I went back and I really started to do that work, I went through rage.
Right.
Anger.
I want to go into what you experienced when you started doing the work, but we're going to have to take a quick break.
Sure.
So when we get back, let's start there, because I know it was quite a process.
Sure.
All right, you guys, we are listening to So Wandering, all together, hanging out here on KGRAradio.com, and we will be right back to continue our wandering with our guest, Athena Demitrios.
Author Kathleen Watts, a.k.a. Thought Continuum, shares a double abduction experience in her book, Catch Me If You Can, a story of alien abduction and culprit plunder. This 1976 true life account of a close encounter in northern Utah near Hill Air Force Base. Imagine driving home from the movies with your spouse when your car suddenly stops working, and it's in that very same moment that you realize you are the only thing animated. Catch Me If You Can, the 5th anniversary edition with lead-in material for the upcoming release of Payback is a Glitch from award-winning author Kathleen Watts. Get your copy today. Log on to thoughtcontinuum.com. That's thoughtcontinuum.com.
Hi, Matt Ray with America's First News here, and I have great news for those of you who suffer with debilitating migraine headaches, maybe a loved one or your child does. MigraLief, the nutritional migraine supplement everyone's talking about, now can be found at the vitamin shop stores nationwide and Meijer in the Midwest. For almost 2 decades, hundreds of thousands of migraine sufferers have benefited from MigraLief, and thousands of neurologists and headache specialists recommend it. Why is it popular? It's drug-free and addresses the specific nutritional needs of adults and children who suffer migraines. What's even better, MigraLief comes in a formula you can take daily and one on the spot as needed. So if you get migraines, get your life back on track. Go to MIG911.com. That's MIG and the numbers 911.com. That's also where you can read the testimonials. Or head on over to your local vitamin shop store nationwide or Meijer in the Midwest. If you get migraines, do yourself a favor. Change your life with MigraLief.
Feeling sluggish, bloated, gassy, and, well, you know, want some relief? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Our unique blend of all natural herbs go to work on your digestive tract, giving you So before you try our super strength formula. It does a great job removing intruders that jack you up. Thousands of people use Life Change Tea every month, so try it because you're gonna love the way you feel. And here's a little pick-me-up. Order now and receive 10% off your first order by entering in 10 today in the coupon code. That's 10 today in the coupon code. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Enter 10 today in the coupon code for your 10% discount. Wow, feeling good never felt so good. Get some tea love at getthetea.com. Changing America one tea bag at a time.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Soul Wanderings, hosted here on KGRARadio.com. We are wandering with our guest this evening, Athena Demitrios. She's the author of Walking Between Worlds, a Spiritual Odyssey, which so happens to be a story about her journey, her personal journey. Welcome back to the show, Athena and listeners.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Having a good time.
Before the break, I interrupted you. You were just about to share with us your journey into the healing process that you went through. Is that correct?
Sure. Yes, I can. I can definitely do that. Well, let me just back up enough to say that as an adult, I had a reoccurring dream sometimes of wanting to go down into a basement and rescuing this little girl, getting her out of the basement. Mm. And I was never able to do that. And so that was part of my desire to want to become more whole. I just wanted to, I felt like part of my psyche in some ways was missing, very disjointed. And so when I made a decision to go back and heal, then I did explore different therapists. And I made a very conscious decision to interview different therapists. And when I heard Dr. Slavin's voice, I knew he was the one. And so I would say it was a real collaboration between his higher self, my higher self, and my intuition and his skill and expertise that really helped to put Humpty Dumpty together again.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah. How did you decide to go with a hypnotherapist or try the hypnotherapy to go back into your dreams and your experiences?
Well, it was really to go back, I think, and I wanted to regain memory again, because I had a specifically clear memory up to a certain point, but then when the actual rape would take place, then it became I always say it was like flipping the television off the channel and it goes to snow. So that's what it was like, but very clear up to that one point. So I thought, okay, so if I could regain that would be good. Well, I thought I'd go in and have one session and it would all be taken care of, right? Well, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And because my defenses were pretty strong, we used hypnotherapy as the tool. And I went under very, very deeply with that. And so that became the tool that we used. But what was very interesting, and to me, even now, it's still somewhat fascinating. I remember Dr. Slavin telling me, he says, your soul takes you where you need to go for healing. So he would put me under sometimes, but I would go off in another direction that obviously there was some healing or some information there that was needed. And again, all of this is in the book there. But when he put me under one time, I went to before I was born. And it was my in-between life. And I could see, I was surrounded by these masters and teachers, and they were showing me my life. And they were kind of throwing it out like on a film script, and I could see it take shape and form. And they were showing me a family that I was going to be born into, and that there were going to be some situations that were going to be difficult and very trying. But they were also showing me how I could change in this life. And they were showing me what could be, and they were showing me what might be. But everything, AJ, was going to be determined on how I perceived to learn from it. And whether I saw myself as a victim or a creator. That would really ultimately shape things in my life. And so that experience was worth its weight in gold. And I remember also this tug, feeling this psychic tug. It was almost like, AJ, if I pulled on your forearm and gave it a good yank, that's what it felt like when I knew I had to go be inside my mother's body. It's time to go. And I always say that was like coming through icy dark mud. That's what it felt like. Because my soul, in that state where right now you're confined inside your body and you're, aware of that, being inside the confines of your body. But in that state, my soul felt, it was like as large as the ocean. There was no confines to it. And that acute state of awareness and the love and the safety is impossible to describe. It was so acutely aware. So that's something I've always held on to from that point. So then going back, it was a conscious decision to go back. And like I say, I wanted to wrestle that demon to the mat. Number one, because I was not going to let this individual win, in essence. And it almost became that way for me. It was like I just felt like there was part of me that I wanted back. And that's my section in the book. It's called She Belongs to Me. I wanted that part of my psyche back. And so I was really willing to do what I needed to do to get there. And I always like to say that, yeah, you walk through some fire to heal. If you've ever gone through a breakup in a relationship or whatever, and you'll cry and you feel like your heart's breaking in two, and how are you going to make it, and how is anything normal ever going to happen in your life again? I always used to say, God, I wish it was 6 months from now, a year from now. I used to say that all the time. But if you allow yourself to be in the anger where you're at, again, you want a really qualified therapist to help you navigate this. But allow that anger its own time and its own space. You'll move through that. And then that will, you'll morph into, when you think you can't cry anymore and you're still crying, that'll stop. And that will morph into, a feeling of, maybe it's the grief, and that will morph into another stage. So each stage of the healing, let yourself be there. And if I could say anything, write down these words. It is a process. Doesn't happen overnight. But, guess what? If you cry, you go home and take a hot bath and eat some chocolate. And I always say, if you like In-N-Out, go eat an In-N-Out or whatever you're eating, macaroni and cheese, a whole pot full of, mashed potatoes, whatever your comfort food is. Indulge yourself, and then, go to sleep and watch your favorite movies. And a couple of days later, guess what? You're going to feel a little bit lighter. And that's the way it works.
It's so important to feel your feels, isn't it?
Oh my God. Because I remember having a therapist one time, and she told me, she says, you were the hardest piece of stone I've ever worked on. And she said, for over 3.5 years, I never thought I could help you. And, I often think about that. But I remember one time when she was trying to get me to explore anger, and I would say, I'm not mad at my mother.
Yeah.
She would say, yeah, like, right. Yeah, you're not. You know what I mean? But it was all shoved down there. And I heard something one time that made a lot of sense to me. It was a feeling that I had lived with all my life, which was anxiety. And when I heard, it was a wonderful therapist or psychiatrist that used to be on the radio years ago. His name was David Biscott. And he said, anxiety is fear of loss. And I thought, wow, that is so great. So anytime I feel anxious, I always say to myself, okay, what are you afraid of losing? You say, and that really helps. Or he would say, anger is repressed hurt that never got expressed at the time you were hurt. Makes sense, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm not a psychotherapist, but I sure know the journey or the healing journey well, so I feel like I can speak to that.
I used to be that those emotion stuffer type personality. Brick wall. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to feel anything. I'm tough.
Yeah.
And it really does more damage than it does good. When I became in touch with my feelings, I realized the many blessings that I had afterwards, after releasing and letting go. I'm way more in touch with my feelings now. So I just, from my point of view, and we're working with other people, those are really important to sit with each emotion as they arise. It's so, so, so important. And then to let it go when you're ready to let it go, but to acknowledge it and definitely sit in it.
Oh, it's we're just, we're soul sisters on that one. And because it's so true, because if you shove it down, what I have found is I wasn't able to ever be present. And I wasn't able to live in the now. I was either rehashing and feeling resentment over some of the experiences and some of the chaos that I created, but I still felt anger or resentment over those. And so I was always being catapulted back, or I was daydreaming into the future, but not in a healthy way. We're not
Right.
talking about creative manifestation here and, steering your own ship. It was a form of escape.
Right.
I found that really dangerous because that became a very easy place for me to slip into, like moving myself into neutral where I didn't have to feel to the point where people would call my name 3 or 4 times trying to get my attention. I was slipping into la la land, and that was when I was probably 19, 20 years old with that. But it was an easy place to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was so out of touch with my feelings. And again, I remember that one therapist. I think I saw her when I was, how old was I? Oh my God. I was in my 20s and living in Los Angeles. And she said, "You are so out of touch with your feelings." And I didn't even know what my feelings were.
Right.
So,
But
yeah.
in the moment, you feel like you're in so much control, like you're the one that's in control of what's going on, but you're really not. It really does make you so messy.
Oh my God. And yes, and then there were times when I felt like I was trying to stand up or walk on a lake bed of frozen ice. Or kind of run, it's kind of like the footsteps will get faster and faster just to try to stay erect. And that wasn't working. And so everything was control. I had to control my environment and people and everything around me. I mean, it was so bad, having to control everything. But that's because I felt like if I didn't have a tight vise on it, then I would not be able to survive. I think underneath it all, that was it. So that was something else that also began to propel me forward in the healing. And I remember Dr. Peebles had told me that I needed to go explore that. But, he says, your teachers and I know that you're strong enough now to do that.
I think a lot of us can relate to that because we don't know until we know that it is healthy to talk about how we're feeling and to work it out instead of holding it all in.
Yes, and I found also one of the things and one of the tools that I'd love to be able to share here with your audience, and this is some of the tools from Dr. Peoples, the one I channel. And, he always, says, again, if you can, and if you take a journal, and let's say you've gone through a hard experience, whatever it is, he said, write about how has it served my soul? How has this experience served my soul? And if somebody will write that out like that, well, then they will find themselves feeling more as the driver of the vehicle and less as the victim. That really begins to turn things in a way that helps you transform because you take responsibility for it. It's the way that, your ability to respond.
And you're still in control.
Yeah, but it's in a more healthy way.
Right.
And, he always says it's impossible not to feel as a victim if somebody else is making the choices for you of change, say, so it's impossible because you're hanging on to their coattails. But if you become the driver of your vehicle, and that's really through understanding that this is a creative adventure, your experiences here on the planet Earth, is that this is a school, and our experiences are our school books. And it's a good way to look at it, that the Earth is a school. And if these experiences continue to come at you over and over again with a repeated pattern, then there's something there that perhaps you may want to pull back that veil and say, I need to look at this a little closer. What is this? Because you will regain a greater part of who you are. You'll feel more connected to your God self, your inner self, the part of you that is all wise, all knowing, all loving, kind, who you really are, that light. So these experiences really are a way to turn you back inward, to start letting go of some of those judgments and, that we've made about ourselves. And another one is I'm not enough. It's a hard one for.
That's a common one. It
That's
absolutely is a common one.
Yeah, and he always says, write a big sign that says, I am enough, exactly as I am. And I love that.
You bring up Dr. Peebles quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
He is the main person that you channel through. Is that why you have such a strong relationship with him?
Well, he comes through, he literally, yes, I work with him a lot with people, but I also am a very devout student of the I Am teachings of Saint Germain, the Ascended Master teachings. And so that has really been, I would have to say, it's been a real combination of what has transformed my life. And that information I came across in 1979 when I call it getting hit on top of the head with a cosmic hammer.
The awakening.
Oh my God, it was like, did she get it? No, okay, let's whack her again. And that's what it felt like. But oh my gosh, I look back at that now as probably the greatest blessing in my life. And then it was shortly after that I was introduced to Dr. Peebles. So I would say it definitely is a combination of finding and connecting to my God source, the I am that I am within. And then I think that connecting up with Dr. Peebles and working with some of his tools, I think it's all multidimensional. And that each one has been very imperative in the healing of what felt as of being so fractured or separated from me. But, I feel so much more whole and happy, more joy in my life. That's all new for me.
It's such a good, yummy feeling, isn't it?
Oh my God, I never thought I'd get here.
Yeah, especially with everything that you've been through. What a journey. And for those of you who don't know who Dr. Peebles is, I believe, wasn't he a spiritual philosopher of some kind?
Well, yes, he's a spiritual philosopher, and they can certainly go to my website and they can read about the doc on there. You'll see him. He's got a long beard. And yes, he states that we knew each other in the 19th century as a spiritualist, and we have so much documentation of my life with him back then. And so, yeah, that's in the book too.
Past life stuff, it's so good.
Yeah, it's like another rabbit hole.
Yes. Yeah, I know you were talking about, you just continue to go down these rabbit holes, which is so interesting because in each one you find another piece or another version of yourself.
Yes, I do. And it's like pull on the thread, and, because I do. And I find myself, my philosophy here is to believe is to see. Not to see is to believe. It's the other way around. To believe is to see. I don't need to have things proven to me. If I feel something in my heart and I feel in alignment with it, then I feel like there's that part of me that's all knowing. And I think, or not think, but I feel like another part of us that becomes more whole or in greater alignment is with our intuition. And that intuition, and certainly working with that through the Ascended Master teachings or meditation, or if somebody's doing yoga, whatever like that, that really begins to quicken. And I think there's an acceleration that happens with those finer faculties where they begin to wake up. Because, of course, you're placing the attention on the inner, because it's never on the outer. It's always, the journey is always inward.
Yes, inward. And we're always seeking outside of ourselves. Imagine that.
Yes, we are. And I heard such a interesting concept, and it's so true that, and it may be out there a little bit, but who knows? But whatever, as long as we're talking about it, we may as well talk about it. But that if you didn't give the word concept or the concept of a word to, like, a bird or a tree or a flower or grass or a cloud or rain. But let's say if you didn't even have a word for those, but if you were just to witness and to view life and you didn't understand what it was, you would really experience more as a presence of life around you, a presence. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of A Course in Miracles?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's very similar teachings.
Yeah, A Course of Miracles. Yeah. And I had one of the most magical experiences of my life. This happened a couple of years ago. And I remember Saint Germain was saying in one of the books, there's several volumes where he teaches the cosmic laws of the universe and basically how to connect with the God within us and our I am presence, our I am that I am. And I remember him saying and quoting, if you bless the powers of nature, the powers of nature will bless you back. And I went next door and I was talking to my neighbor, and I happened to glance down, and there was the sweetest little bird. It was just all nestled in the foliage there, staring straight up at me. And this bird wasn't fluttering a feather. Its little beak was completely vertical, and I bent down and I started talking to it. It was so sweet. And I just said, you are just such a magical little being of light, and you're such a messenger of light and love, and we love you and all the light you bring to the planet. And I just kind of talked to him that way for a few minutes. I mean, I wish you could have, my heart was just like, oh my God, such a sweet little thing. Anyway, so I reluctantly came back to my place, and this was maybe 15 or 20 steps from where I was at her place. And I walked in. I have an automatic screen door. So about 10, 15 minutes later, I sit down in my meditation chair, and I look down, and that bird had followed me in the house. And it was sitting at my left foot, staring up at me.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, AJ, I can't even begin to tell you I have never had my heart feel such a physical expansion. It was physical. And I made a perch out of my index finger, and I bent down very slow, and this little thing just, got right up under my finger, and I raised it very slow, and we had this other conversation for probably another 5-10 minutes. Then eventually I took it outside, set it on a little bird bath, and filled it up with water. And my neighbor and my sister were witnessing this, and they were standing far back. They didn't want to get too close, and everybody kind of had their mouth hanging open. Filled it up with water, and this little sweet little thing just he approached that water like a rock that was skipping across a still pond, and there were just droplets of water flying everywhere. He was giving himself a bath. He did that 3 or 4 times, and then he flew off. But we laughed because we called him Lyle because he had a hairdo like Lyle Lovett.
What a fun story.
Oh my God. It was
that's such a joy. It's like an old friend. And with that, you guys are listening to Soul Wanderings here on KGRAradio.com. Let's take a quick break and get back really quickly so we can continue our wandering with Athena Demitrios.
that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hi, it's AJ from Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. Have you been searching for unique items to create or add to your sacred space? What about tools for your holistic healing? Or those one-of-a-kind magical ingredients to manifest your desires? Well, look no more, because Vibes has a variety of items to assist you in your spiritual journey. From crystals to candles, incense to books, tapestries to jewelry, OnlineVibes.com has what you're seeking. We even have some thoughtful and mindful gifts to share with your friends and family too. Visit us at OnlineVibes.com from the comfort of your home, or give us a call at 385-244-1099 to have your order beautifully packaged and sent directly to you or a loved one. And right now, take advantage of the coupon code KGRA at checkout to receive 15% off any order. Remember, online, VIBEC.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Where will you be this September 13th through the 15th if you are a critical thinker seeking answers to questions like,
what are aliens?
Are they demons?
Or visitors from other worlds?
Do they have an agenda? And if so, how do we stop them from interfering in our lives? Then the place you need to be is Branson, Missouri, inside the Mansion Theater, as Gen 6 Productions presents The True Legends Answering the Alien Question Conference 2019, featuring writer, explorer, and filmmaker Timothy Alberino, author, lecturer, and filmmaker L.A. Marzulli. Is our planet being prepared for reseeding by non-Earth entities? Find out from publisher Mike Adams, UFO investigator Chase Kletzky, investigative reporter George Knapp, world-renowned researcher and author Steve Quayle,
and many more.
Reserve your seats or order live streaming now at gen6.com.
We are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
Hello, you are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. And you can find Soul Wanderings here, as well as many other platforms for your convenience, like Spotify and TalkStream Live, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker, just to name a few. But be sure you guys check out the official KGRA Radio on YouTube for the latest show archives. But wherever you are joining us from tonight, I'm happy to have you wandering with us tonight. If you guys have any questions, make sure you are in the chat room. We're going into our second half of the Wandering commercial free, so we still have time for you to ask. Hop on into that chat room by going to kgraradio.com/chat. We're visiting with Athena Demitrios. She's the author of Walking Between Worlds, A Spiritual Odyssey, and it is a book about her experiences here, her human experiences, as well as a spiritual journey that she's been on, which has been quite amazing to listen to. And, you know, Athena, we've only talked about just a little tidbit about your book. It's like almost 400 pages, isn't it? Like 300 and some odd pages.
Yeah. Well,
so there's a lot going on in this book.
There is a lot. It was a lot to live. And yes, it's got everything from seeing spirits and helping them cross over. That's one of the things that is part of my life and part of my journey, part of my path. And past lives, you know, spontaneously going back to past lives and doing some time travel. That's part of the book as well. And so there's all of these different dimensions that I've, you know, simply had one put in. But I like to say that it is truly wanting to go home. I don't know how else to put it. It's to go home. Mm-hmm. And it's just my journey back to God. All of these.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I thought you were done. There was this part several parts in the book where you did not, you talk about going home. You didn't want to be here, even from the very get-go. You wanted to go home. And that's something that you've faced several times throughout your life, yet you're still here.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's because of your belief of having to come back and redo it all over again. But how did you overcome those feelings of your longing to be back home?
And to, basically, I mean, to commit suicide was, that was a strong one, you know, for me. That was so strong. But when I had this awakening, 1979, and I had 3 different experiences. They all hit 3 different events hit in 24 hours, and each one of them was pretty big. But suffice it to say, it brought me to my knees. And it was at that point where I had an epiphany in a split second, where I really understood that. Well, let me back up. I remember praying from such a deep part of me that, you know, and I said, if God, if you are out there and if you really exist, that was the thing. If you really exist, you know, then you have to be every word that comes out of my mouth and help me reach my daughter. And that's, you know, that was an event around my daughter. And I had this epiphany where I saw that the way that I approached life, or I treated life, really had no choice but to come back to me in a like experience. It was the only way I was going to learn the cause of what I was creating and the effect it had on the rest of the universe, the rest of the world. And when I had that epiphany, that's when I said, oh my God, I understand. And at that moment there, and this was the most mystical moment, there was a golden ray that came into my front room and dusted everything with gold. Everything was dusted with gold. Mm-hmm. It would be, sometime later that I would learn that the ray of a master of his love was golden color. So I think that's when I was being awakened by Saint Germain, at that moment, although I didn't understand it. But I remember the feeling. It was such a hard time. Oh, my gosh. But I remember just kind of like throwing myself on the bed and just sobbing out all these years of garbage. And then the next thing I knew, I found myself climbing, and I was climbing into another dimension. Now, it was more real than me sitting here talking to you. It was more real than anything in this dimension. But I was climbing, and it was like I was hanging almost vertical, where you, like I was trying to reach for this plateau, and I was maybe like my fingernails felt like they were half an inch from the top, and I just kept saying, I can't make it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And I just wanted to drop and just fall. The dead weight felt so overwhelmingly powerful, and my muscles just felt so weak. And anyway, but I pulled myself up, and it was such an incredibly beautiful place. It was certainly in another dimension. Everything was green and beautiful and translucent and glistening and shimmering, and you could just see the energy moving it's like in all of the leaves or the grass. And I turned my head, and I saw my father, who had been dead for about 17, dead, I can't even use the word, had made his transition about 17 years prior. And he looked at me, and he must have been, I would say, probably 25 feet, from me. And he walked up to me, and I've never seen so much peace and love in someone's eyes. Mm. And he held me. Now, my father was never around, so it was always a question whether he really loved me or not. But he just held me, and there was all of this white light that just flowed from my father's heart through mine. And in that white light was a complete knowing of how much my father had always loved me, always. And so that was very healing for me. And then I woke up again, sobbing from that. I woke up in the bed. Then later on that day, I went down to a restaurant in Westwood, California, Los Angeles. And I was thinking, where in the world was it that I went? Where was that place that I went where I saw my father? And I remember the waiter had just brought me a cup of coffee, and I took a sip of coffee, put my head up, and I was sitting underneath a poster of Edward G. Robinson. And that's just who my father looked like, the actor. Mm-hmm. So there you go. So later on, down Dr. Slavin, when he's got me under, I talk about that experience with my father, but I recall what he said when I was under hypnosis. And what he said to me was, it is not your time to come over here yet. You've got to go back and be in the body. It's not your time. He said, continue to pray, because it's going to be revealed to you. Continue to pray. And that was shortly after that someone said, you're ready for this? And they gave me the books by Saint Germain. And I opened up that first book, broke down, and cried like a baby, because I knew it was everything I had always felt in my heart that I could never find outwardly. So,
and the experience you had during your awakening, it all came full circle.
Well, it did. It was just, it was, and then it began, the working with the information, because I remember him saying, anybody that will take the time that they spend criticizing other people, places, conditions, or things from being other than what they want them to be, and they will apply the short meditation, will not need any more proof. They'll have all the proof they need in 10 days. So I thought, wow, that's a big statement. So I made a commitment to apply that short meditation, and that that really began to transform everything from that point. And then it was really about, basically, it was like we were saying, if you've got two forces at work, you've got the God self, the inner self, the higher self, the I am that I am, or you have the outer self that creates the chaos, the judgment, the fear, the anger, everything that's destructive really gets created from the outer self. Everything good that we create, or everything good and kind and loving that we are, is that presence within us that we allow to flow forth from us and express as it naturally would. And so he just said, it's a matter of anchoring your attention, because one or the other is going to take control. So you either have to anchor to who you truly are. And with that process, it's almost like you start opening that door and shining light. That light becomes broader and broader and broader and more encompassing, and things in one's life really do transform. So.
Your mind, it is a belief system too, because your mind is such a powerful tool. We've talked about this so many times on the show, but and meditation. You meditate quite often, at least in your book. That's something that comes up regularly. That's something that you practice on a regular basis. Was that another tool that was good for you to build your own intuition and your gifts?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Yes, I think that's a natural evolution of that, because, here is one of the things that I use when I go into my meditation is, I always say, and you can say Mother, Mother, Father, God, or whatever it is. I just say, Beloved, I am presence. Take me deep within thyself. There instruct me, and cause me to retain perfect memory of all instruction I receive. So that's usually what I will start with, because I want to become more conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I want to become more conscious and more loving and more godlike. We're all gods and goddesses in the making. We're all part of that loving consciousness. And, I truly believe with all my heart that, the highest law in the universe is love.
Mm.
It's absolute love. Yeah. And so when that gets out of balance, and when we, seek to take that power as our own, then, we create the wars, we create the havoc, we create lack and limitation. Because I remember, one of the things that I loved so much, and what made me just break down and cry like a baby, was that when Saint Germain was, he had appeared to a man on Mount Shasta, which I live very close to, about an hour and a half from Mount Shasta. It's magical, it's mystical. And I remember, opening up this book, and he was saying that, life and all activities everywhere manifest as God in action. But it was through mankind's lack of understanding that this pure essence of energy was constantly interrupted. Or if it were allowed to flow on its way, we would experience peace and love and harmony, for that was the natural state of life. But we're always given free will to qualify it. And so we're constantly re-qualifying it. Think of it almost as it's coming to us pure and perfect, but because of our free will, then we we reclothe it. Just think of it almost as putting a pair of dirty old overalls over, you get out of the shower, you're nice and clean, and then you put on a pair of filthy old overalls, and that's kind of reclothing it with anger, with hatred, with greed, with whatever. But those are human qualities. They have nothing to do with, with the God qualities, as I'll call them, or the I am. But, we can't escape that we have free will, and we are constantly creating. So everything really is cause and effect. So things that we're doing now are going to have another effect. So it's really becoming more aware And it doesn't happen overnight. Maybe it does for some people, sure doesn't me.
I don't know who those people are.
Well, me neither, but it's, it's a couple steps forward, a couple steps back or whatever, but I'm getting better. And, I just feel so blessed. I feel blessed by the good, bad, the ugly. Thank you, God. And speaking of that, I just want to throw in here recently, I was truly able here in this, now I'm 72, and, it's a good time in my life, and I'm so appreciative and grateful. And it was just recently, maybe a month ago, that I was able to truly forgive the perpetrator.
Oh, wow.
And not from the head, but from my heart. And I found myself here, thinking about him and thinking, what in the world ever happened to him that made him feel so incredibly separated or powerless?
Mm-hmm.
What had that soul gone through? And so I found myself, I think, God, I don't want that for him, and I found myself, asking that they give him the greatest assistance, take his soul to the highest plane possible for him, where he can evolve and he can learn through love.
That's forgiveness.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. But I also read, and I think it was in Course of Miracles, I believe, that the word forgive actually means give for those who are incapable.
Yes.
That, give for. And another one of the words that I love, kind of bouncing all over the place here, but is the word impossible, because it doesn't say that at all. It says, I am possible.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so I love that one.
The power of words. It's all in the perception.
Yeah.
And how you view them and use them. Definitely.
So, it feels very blessed, and, I feel very blessed, and it's been
I'm happy for you that you had the opportunity, that you took the opportunity to truly forgive someone who did you harm from your heart in this lifetime. What an amazing blessing for you to have that experience.
Well, it was incredible. And, my mother, because you certainly read about my mother was, she really was a wonderful person. She just, some of her choices, of course, weren't good, but, bless her heart, she just couldn't cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I, finally reached the point, could I have done any better, with 7 kids and a loss of such wealth, and my father was a compulsive gambler and just gambled away all this inheritance, and they had inherited a fortune. But it took me years to say, could I have done any better than what she did? And more of the anger was really directed at my mom, because and it normally is towards the parent, because they're the ones that are supposed to protect you.
Right.
So that's where more of that anger. But yes, I was able to absolutely fully forgive my mom too, and that was several years ago. Not before she transitioned, but after she transitioned. So yeah, I would give my eye teeth if my mom was around now. She was a lover of mysticism, believed in UFOs, and oh yeah, she loved the paranormal. That wasn't part of my world back then.
Right. And you guys would have amazing conversations now. Well, you will, and I'm sure you have since, but
yeah.
How did those experiences come into your life? I know you've done some astral traveling, and you've even seen visions of things that came into fruition. How did those experiences start happening for you?
Well, again, I think, or I feel like, AJ, it's just been part of becoming more conscious. I think it's part of the meditations, because that has continued to take me deeper and deeper. And along with that, with those meditations, there's all of these wonderful, and I'm sure you work a lot with affirmations.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Daily.
Oh, yes. And they're wonderful. And the same thing with the working with the affirmations of the, I am presence. And I think it's a natural evolution of the soul once you start making that kind of an alignment. And of course, then through meditation on a regular basis, then of course that aspect of yourself, the God self, the inner self, the I am that I am, is going to grow in scope, and the human self is going to become more diminished. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely it does.
So it's a matter of taking the time to do it, because if you don't take the time to do it, you're not going to have the results. And then, because what we see in the world around us is really a thought. I mean, it's what we're constantly projecting. And it's not happening by chance or accident. It's, the release of all cataclysmic events and things, a lot of that. And then I always say, well, the scientists, certain with global warming and all of that. But I know one of the things that Saint Germain talks about is that cataclysmic effects and storms are also a result. When we release all this anger, it just doesn't stay in us. And anger feels ugly, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It just does. But this stuff goes out into the universe. That's kind of like why you can walk from perhaps one neighborhood, and then have you ever noticed how you can, even almost within a block, the vibration completely changes?
Oh, yeah. Even room to room at different locations, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel, from sitting where you are in this moment of your life, do you feel like there's going to be a shift in our vibration or our dimensional energy in this lifetime or coming soon, even
I think
the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, we're in the throes of it, and we're in the throes now of absolute. I think the Earth is in childbirth, and humanity is in childbirth, and we're all having to really make a decision on what rung of that ladder we're going to stand on.
Which would make a lot of sense, seeing how there's so much drama going on in the world today.
Oh my God! And when you see, the degrading and what's happening within humanity, and I'm quoting Saint Germain here again, but I think it was in the original book, The Unveiled Mysteries. That was the first one I picked up. The original Unveiled Mysteries. But I remember him saying in there that the human being can be more vicious than any animal in the jungle.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh, and because you see it now, and look what's going on politically and the way people are being treated. And, so we're really having to make a decision beyond any kind of political party. I mean, it's really, where are the morals of what's going to get us back on track again, too? It's just, it's horrific. To tell you the truth, I have trouble going in. I can flip on the news and I flip it back off. Enough just to catch up.
I don't even watch the news.
But you can certainly flood light,
mm-hmm.
or, and flood that forth from your heart. And
definitely.
Because it has an effect, in the world and people, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And, the quote, be the change you wish to see in the world, really is, to me, a legitimate quote, because it's a ripple effect. It becomes something contagious, just like this darkness has become contagious, and so many people are in it, the light always overcomes the darkness. And if we can be that change, if just one person can do it and trigger another person and so forth, the entire vibration of your whole community and rippling outward could definitely change. I really believe that.
Well, I do too. And, when you send out love or even your visualization, from the planet, and when you're working, there is so much help that is being given to help awaken humanity, and we are being awakened. And there are all of these wonderful cosmic beings and angelic beings and ascended masters, and we all have that capacity to become one with that consciousness. I mean, Christ was an incredible master who was able to do that and showed how through alignment that each one of us has that same capacity to do that. So I truly believe it's just like, even there's if there's some affirmations that you align with, and even if it's a few, one that I love, and I'll say a lot, if you have a problem, any of your listeners, just say to yourself and keep affirming this: I am the perfect solution to this problem. And just continue to say that. I am the perfect solution to this problem. And that answer will drop in. That's the way it works. It really will. So, and it always
like
does.
that affirmation.
Yeah, isn't that great? I am the perfect solution to this problem. And, and there's so many wonderful ones, but one that I love is, I'll say, to my presence, beloved, I am presence. Now, my presence is listening because I'm turning my will over. In essence, it's through my free will. I'm redirecting the ship here to take control. And, I'll just say, go forth before me today and see that I act in divine order and enfold each and every one I come into contact with divine light and divine love, and bring to that soul whatever it takes to set them free. Do you see what I mean? Yes. So it's a matter of doing that, redirecting it, the affirmation, because what I do know from studying that, it is not that presence of all life, and it's that presence which is beating our heart and giving us the ability to think and to move. But it's that part within, and I love to do this. I would say, okay, AJ, what quality do you love about yourself? When I say love, I don't mean the egotistical, that kind of thing, but I'm just saying that you genuinely, well, you could say like, but I always say, well, what quality do you love about yourself? And I know you got lots of them.
The first one that comes to mind is unconditional.
There you go. So that's a beautiful quality. Well, that quality within you, that unconditional, which is such a beautiful quality, is the quality. It's a quality. It's a God quality. It's that presence, your I am presence. It's the presence of life in you that is expressing unconditionally through you because you're allowing it. What I love about myself is courage. I love my courage or perseverance. I love that about myself, that I have courage. And that's a God quality. So and I would like all of your listeners, anyone who's listening to this, to think about those qualities, and whether it's generosity or kindness or humor, or if you're an uplifter, or, your sensitivity, whatever, your compassion, all of those are the natural expression of that presence of life, which will flow on its way when we allow it to flow forth. So that's the God quality going forth to bless life. So I love that.
It's so good. Do you believe that we have, when we say our affirmations, that we actually have to feel them and know them to be true already, or like believe in them, or can we just say them and continue to say them until we believe them?
The latter.
Really?
Because, I think, yes, it would be wonderful if we all were able to, so here's a good example, okay? Because if you are born into tremendous poverty, okay, and that kind of that vibration or that feeling of lack and limitation, that's an energy. Okay, that's a vibration. It's an energy that, you kind of get soaked up with in essence, that's adhering to you. So sometimes it's a big jump to all of a sudden say, I am wealth, and to fully believe it. You see what I'm saying? But in actually continuing to do that, that gap diminishes. And you move into that phase of really feeling, I am wealth. Mm. I am wealth manifest. And do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I've heard it both ways. That's why I was curious. And I've practiced both ways. There was a class that I took that it was an I am class, and they were saying you can't manifest it if you don't believe it. So say you're talking about wealth, saying I am wealthy as if it's already occurred, that it's already true.
That you're already there. And I understand that. And I get what they're saying that. And there's great truth to that. I guess another point of view and just a perspective is that by repeating an affirmation, also by continuing to repeat, you become more in aligned with that belief system, that because it becomes a knowing, the feeling becomes a knowing eventually, that you are. But let's say if you are living in the ghetto, to start to make the jump that you are wealth, I think is a hard jump. I think people have to be able to move into that. That's Abraham Hicks is really quite wonderful with that too. Yes. Have you ever listened to that? About
absolutely.
Feeling your way up that resonance. So there's great truth to that. So, but what I have found for myself over the years of doing these affirmations, oh my God, it's like veil after veil becomes dissolved. And I have found settling into more what at first when I started felt a little bit more abstract. Even saying it was more abstract. Now it's like there is such a deeper comprehension and a conviction and a knowingness. And I think that happens. I think that happens as one continues to progress, because we're all students, and we're all at different places on the ladder. And it's like you can have come into this lifetime and have honed some skills that you brought into from other lives that I'm still stretching to hone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So no one's above another one. I mean, there are people certainly that are a little bit more advanced in awareness with certain things, but no one is better than another one. We're all students of light, all students of life, all making our way back home, whatever that is.
I agree. Yeah. Do you feel like affirmations, while we're talking about them, do you feel like they're a way to start a journey of loving yourself?
Oh, yeah, I do. Absolutely. Because, if you look at just using the words, and they say, you've got to be very careful with what you hitch to the two words I or I am. Mm. Because the I am is the creative word. It's the creative word. So it's whatever follows through free will that really begins to direct that word. So how many times, if you continue to say, basically that nothing works out, or you're flat broke, or, and you use the words I am in front of it, or sick, then you see how it spirals everything off into that direction?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah.
Because that's negative thinking also.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's not, we're so used to, we're so used to letting that pendulum swing to the negative because there's no resistance there. That's easy. It's easy to go there. But it does take, I think it takes more resolve or intention to want to turn that ship around. And it does take more a discipline or a desire. Maybe it's the desire because, God, my life was just such a mess. It just wasn't working. So I was willing to do what I needed to do to turn it around. So that meant sitting down and meditating, even though it felt awkward at once or in the beginning. But I just determined to stay with it. And oh my God, then everything began to shift and transform. And it continues to, because it continues to take you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the understanding and beyond the veils of separation and that gap between the outer self and the God self just begins to dissolve. And, when you become more conscious, more loving. And I was looking at the word evolve one time, and I love words. At the word evolve, and if you do it, add a VE, do the word love, okay, and then flip it around and add a VE to it, you've got evolve. And the more you love, the more you evolve. The more you evolve, the more you love. So I think it's a natural progression and it's a natural expansion. So we've got two directions which we can go. You can spiral downward, and that'll continue to spiral you downward, or you can create the change. And even if it's a small thing, again, even if it's the smallest thing, I am the perfect solution to this problem. I am, I am let's say I am a being of light. And for me, it was like, I was always, I am presence, reveal yourself to me. So, and there's so many wonderful affirmations. So, if you find 5 or 10 that you like, sit down and repeat those on a daily basis and watch what happens. I would say that to anyone who's listening, watch what happens if you do that.
You also talked about the power of journaling, and even if someone were to write, I am ... 20 times in their journal, the power of doing that is also incredible.
Yeah. Well, yes. And there's so many, I am protected and supplied by the light because we're light beings. We are the light. I am protected. I'm supplied by the light. I am filled with the love of light. I am one with God consciousness. I mean, it's just write them down and just put them in a little journal and repeat them. And, people can always contact me.
It's so good.
They can always reach me through my website, and I'll be doing a class on this too.
Oh, good. I've taught several classes on I am. I think it's so powerful when you show someone the tools. Like, the power is inside of you, and you're capable of being anything you desire to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I love about it is, where Saint Germain talks about, you may as well, through the repeated, through the study of someone is feeling drawn to study the Ascended Master teachings. And it was pretty fascinating, actually, how that came into being, which was he took it upon himself karmically, and I think this is amazing, to bring this information forth prior to this This was in 1930s, prior to Saint Germain bringing this forward. Students were taken into retreats, and the word retreat means mighty focus of light. That's what it truly means. And students were always chosen by a master. Now, he says, make no mistake about it, the master never chooses a student, or excuse me, the student never chooses the master always chooses the student because of their inner light and their strength, see. And so he would, if a master chose a student, they would take him into these retreats, and after about a 3-year probationary period, they would reveal the teachings of the I Am to him. And so Saint Germain felt that we were at such a point of destroying the planet. This was in the 30s, probably through nuclear holocaust. And so he appeared to a man named Godfrey Ray King, who went up to Mount Shasta in the 30s on business. And I don't know if you've ever seen Mount Shasta, but it is mystical.
I've heard.
Oh my God, you drive by it and it just exudes peace. You know it's sacred when you drive by it. And so he went up there one morning, he said, in a strange way, just asked God to guide his path, took off and started hiking up the mountain. And he said it was around noon and he was looking for a place to get a drink of water, bent down, and he felt this energy go through his body like this electrical current. And he turned around and there was a man who was standing right behind him. And he thought at first it was a hiker like himself. But he said when he looked at him, he knew this was no ordinary person. And the man said to him, brother, if you hand me your cup, I will give you something to drink, that which comes from the universal supply, which is much more vivifying than spring water. He said, as a matter of fact, it's life itself. Life exists all around you, omnipresent. He hands him this cup, and it fills up with what he calls liquid white light, and he instructs him to drink it. As he drank it, he could feel his consciousness expand. And the man smiled, and he said, that which you drank came directly from the universal supply. He said, all I have to do is desire gold. But because I desire gold with love, and he opens up his hand, and there's a gold piece in his hand. He said, this is known as the law of precipitation. And he said, you desired to see something like this with such intensity that your own God presence within you brought you to the place where that desire could be fulfilled. He said, for every desire that you truly have, when you desire it enough, has to come into being. It's the law. Don't you love it? And so he said, it'll be my pleasure to teach you of the cosmic laws of the universe. And so what he's basically saying, we are, you have the law of attraction, the law of precipitation, the law of love, which is the highest law. But, these laws are working whether we're ignorant of them or not. So to become aware of them and to begin to work within those laws, that's where the transformation comes around. Isn't that beautiful?
It just feels warm and fuzzy.
It feels like just the best stack of my comfort food, which would be pancakes. Or
I agree with you, sister. I love those pancakes.
Yeah, I used to love those. But anyway, that everything about that felt so right to me. And
yeah, it feels really good, and I feel like it resonates with everyone on some level. You sharing that it's food for thought. It's soul candy. It really is something to contemplate and sit with.
Well, it is, and it's so wonderful to become aware. There's so much help that is given to us, and we just need to turn our hearts and our eyes and our intention up. And, if you are wondering if you have those that are working with you on the higher realms, you bet you do. Mm-hmm. Everybody does. And, don't be afraid to ask for help. And, there's so many wonderful affirmations that will help open that door, And I think that's what it means. I am the open door that no man may shut. When you use those two words, I am. You're opening up that door.
And I feel like another important thing would be to be still and listen. So many people are in such a rush to get the answers that they're not taking the moment to pause.
Right. And, that's true. And that's, be still and know that I am.
Yes.
The presence within you. And so to be quiet. Here's another one that really helps. If someone, can't, you'll hear people say all the time, I don't have time to, I can't, I try to meditate and it doesn't work. Well, everybody has the monkey mind.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down and, I'll sit down to meditate. I've made a little altar, which works great. And, if anyone's listening, create an altar, create a point of focus.
Mm-hmm.
That always helps. But, you can sit down and say, oh, my God, I've got to pay that bill tomorrow. I've got to pick this up at the store and I've got to go there. And I told that person, I called them back. I've got to get that email off. That's the monkey mind going and going and going. But here's something you can say. You could just, whether it's I am filled with the light of God. I am the peaceful breath of God. You just keep repeating that and watch what happens. Watch what happens with your breathing. It'll start to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
It all begins with reaching out, taking that first step. It doesn't happen overnight, but that first step is that's a good one. And
it's the best one, that first step.
That first step. And
I really wish we had more time to wander with you tonight really quickly because we are running out of time. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Or how can they?
Yes.
They can connect with me on my website, which is iamwithin.com. iamwithin.com.
How appropriate, and what a great way to end the show.
Yeah, thank you. And it went by so fast and it was so much fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I do encourage you guys to read Athena's book. Do you want to remind them the name of the book and where they can get the book?
Yes, I would. Yes, it is. I also refer to it as Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
That would be appropriate, yes.
It is. But it's Walking Between Worlds. And I really like the listener or whoever's reading it. They go on that journey with me because it's the writing is very, very raw. I do not hold back in that. So part of it, I talk like a sailor, but that was my journey.
Yeah, and it's perfect.
Yeah, it was raw. So Between Worlds, you can get that on Amazon. It can be ordered through any traditional store, Barnes & Noble. Just did a nice book signing there. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And there are some experiences that you went through and shared in your book that were challenging to read and to even comprehend. They were raw and very detailed. But I do want to personally thank you for sharing your experiences as authentically as you did. I know it took a lot of courage for you to share those things, especially with the world, publishing it in a book. So sincerely, thank you for showing up and doing that for all of us.
Well, bless your heart. And, I'm just sending lots of light and love to every one of your listeners. And, I just want to say that shadows hide and your light can outshine any shadow in your world. And that's what you are. You are a presence of beautiful light. You are a god or a goddess in the making. You're unique. There's only one you. You have a gift to give to life. And so I am flooding you with light from my heart to yours.
Thank you, Athena. And we will receive that light.
Thank you so much.
Next week on Soul Wanderings, we are visiting with Bill Protzman. His mission is to raise awareness for how to intelligently access and use the science of rhythm and sound in everyday life. He does that by teaching people how to leverage the music they love for health, success, and a more peaceful life. Soul Wanderings can be found on all the main social media platforms, but go over to soulwanderings.com to link on them directly. And of course, you guys better be following KGRA Radio on all the platforms. Let's continue sharing all of this good stuff with our family and friends and have these meaningful and high vibrational conversations that bring awareness into our experiences. Thank you, everyone, for wandering with us tonight, and have a happy day.